Hi guys and welcome back to my channel. If you haven't already, remember to subscribe to me down below and to give me a thumbs up on any videos that you do like. I am going to apologise because I have changed myself a little bit, so I am sitting on my desk chair instead of my bed like I normally do, which means that if I start to do this quite a lot in my video, I am really sorry, but it's a swingy chair and it's just natural to be really irritating on it. Also, I am really sorry for the fact that I haven't put a video up in a couple of weeks. I did work the weekend a few weeks ago, but I used last week to catch up on bits and pieces at home and to see family, so my personal life kind of took preference. I have done a new blog post on Prima. If you didn't already know, they are my favourite junior team, so I will link you to that down below if you want to have a read. So my video is going to be very similar to something that I have done in the past. I have done another video on the same lines, if not almost identical, but it's about grid penalties and penalties in general. So Austin was actually a pretty decent race. It was quite dramatic towards the end, but obviously grid penalties and penalties in general did once again play a massive role in this. We started off with Brendan Hartley was the first victim of the grid penalties. I think before he'd even got in the seat, before he even managed to replace Pierre, he had a 25 place grid penalty for engine and power unit component changes. I think it was along those lines. So he qualified in 18th, which was a pretty impressive qualifying for someone that hasn't actually been in an F1 car in ever, I think it is. So he qualified in 18th but started in 19th, so you know, 25 places. Totally worked. Next victim was Nico Hulkenberg, who had a 20 place grid penalty and qualified in 15th and started in 18th, yeah. So his was something very similar, also car related. I am going to get the car related ones out of the way with first. Next up was Max Verstappen, who had a 15 place grid penalty, which ended up actually being a 10 place one with the rest of the penalties going on at the end of the grid. So he qualified in 6th and started in 16th. And then, not to be left out, the McLaren of Stoffel van Dorn started off with a 5 place grid penalty, which ended up being 30 places, which meant that his qualifying of 13th ended up actually being 20th. Oh, you know, I really hate these grid penalties. So, as I've said before in the past, car-related issues like this, don't give them grid penalties because they can't actually control this. Unsurprisingly, the drivers are not in control of what happens with their car unless they are sitting in it and actually moving it themselves. So when they have an issue with a power unit or they need some form of component changing in their engine, penalise the team. Take points off the constructors or give them a fine. Stop penalising drivers because you're taking it away from the rest of, you're taking it away from the fans, you're taking it away from them, because all they're doing is putting this hard work in. The likes of Stoff, he could have just gone, oh, bugger it. I'm just gonna not get out of Q1 because I'm starting at the back anyway. Same with Brendan, he could have done that, but he's not going to do that because he's a class act. You're penalising the fans and the drivers for something that they can't control because, funnily enough, the drivers do not build the cars themselves. I know this is news to a lot of us. I mean, we all thought that it was actually in the garage building it themselves, so it's their fault that something goes wrong. Yeah, funnily enough, unless they have physically taken bits out or hide sugar into their engine, it is not their goddamn fault. So stop penalising them and putting them to the back of the grid, or in the case of poor Stoff, 30 places, make them start in the city over. What is the point? I mean, I hate these grid penalties, and I've said this before. When it comes to car issues, grid penalties are just ridiculous. Then we'll move on, I will calm down and move on to the two that actually have grid penalties that kind of relate to something, well, don't kind of relate, do relate to something they have done, which is Lance Stroll and Kevin Magnussen. This also really wound me up, but I will move on to this in a second. So Stroll has a 3-place grid penalty for impeding Romain Grosjean and for what was quite a dangerous manoeuvre and could have caused a collision with Grosjean. So he qualified in 17th and started in 15th. Solid grid penalty. And Kevin Magnussen had a 3-place grid penalty for impeding Sergio Perez and qualified in 20th and started in 17th. Solid grid penalties for something that the drivers did, and still they managed to start ahead of where they actually were meant to. Please, riddle me this. Where is the goddamn logic? So, I sat there. I actually had to troll through majority of Twitter and the majority of the news articles that floated around to find out where people were starting on Sunday. So this is what I spent my Sunday morning doing. I actually did a video, and then they started to reshuffle grid penalties with Stoffel Van Dorn, and I had to throw an entire video out, and I was just like, stuff it, I cannot be bothered. Cannot be bothered to film another one. And yet, here I am. So, thankfully, Luke Smith came to the rescue and actually did tweet out the provisional grid, which then ended up having to change because they gave Stoff an extra like 25 places on his original one. I'm pretty sure his was. Anyway, they gave Stoff this ridiculous grid penalty and made him start from the back, and honestly I saw this and just I wanted to cry because this sport is getting absolutely goddamn ridiculous. And I thought that was going to be the most ridiculous thing of the weekend, Stoff's 30-place grid penalty. But oh no, it got so much worse. So we were treated to amazing final lap action between Kimi Räikkönen and Max Verstappen, which I've got to say, I'm not normally a Verstappen fan. I've warmed to him this year with Daniel Ricciardo. I've really warmed to him, and I was on my feet. I was stood on my bed screaming for him to come on. And the fact that he got that 3rd place, I was absolutely over the moon. And then it was like a flashback to last year in Mexico, and he's in the cool down room being told he's not actually got 3rd place and to get out. So I'm stood there thinking, well, what's happened? Saw the replays. In my opinion, yeah, track limits. I understand that. I get that. But what about the rest of them? You can't decide for one driver, yeah, he's broken track limits, but for the rest, for other corners where they have obviously broken track limits during the weekend, for the free practices, for qualifying, for the race itself, when others have done the same thing in different corners, you can't then go, yeah, it's not breaking track limits. But yeah, Max has broken it. We were all I was looking at this at least and thinking, oh, Max. And then Max turns around and says about the idiot Stewart, how no one should come back to Coda, and oh, it was just, oh, I love you, Maxie, I really do, but sweetie, shh, just shush. The fact that he ended up, sorry, that was a piece of fluff, the fact that not only did he lose his 3rd place finish, he got a penalty point as well, which is ridiculous. There needs to be consistency. If you're going to hand out a penalty that is going to rob someone of a podium finish and you're then going to give them a penalty point, you need to be consistent and do this throughout the weekend. throughout the race with all the drivers. You need to be consistent. You can't just suddenly decide at the end of the race, yep, broke track limits, give him a penalty, give him a point. For the rest of them, nah, sound. We'll just disregard that. Never happened. Didn't see it. If I didn't see it, didn't happen. There needs to be consistency, and this is one of the things that I absolutely hate. There is no real consistency. Like the only consistent thing there has been in the last couple of years is the fact that Kvyat's got a demotion and Verstappen's been taken out of the cool down room and lost his 3rd place. That is the only consistency that has happened. So please, FIA, oh my god, also if you haven't already seen it, please go on to Twitter and find Jos Verstappen's account, because oh my god, I honestly thought it might be a parody account, or I wasn't even thinking, well, I didn't actually think it was a parody account, I was really hoping it was. Oh my days, that man was angry last night, and it was fantastic, and honestly it is just some of the best entertainment I've had all night. But speaking of the FIA, it just reminded me, the FIA need to have some form of consistency, because it is driving me insane. I don't know what is happening from one week to another. I don't know what is happening with penalties. I don't even know like what is happening with drivers. Who even races for Toro Rosso anymore? Who? Please tell me, because I don't know. Is Kvyat still in the seat? Does Kvyat know? Don't think he does. We've got Pierre, and that's about it. Like, Pierre seems to be the little consistent thing that's happening in Toro Rosso at the minute, but this weekend wasn't a consistent thing because he got sent over to Japan to race and didn't race because there was a typhoon. And yet this morning put a video up where it is bright sunshine, dry track, and I think he is pretty peed off at the fact that they were made to go out there to sit and do nothing all weekend, and he got to then watch his seat being taken by someone else. Oh, it just makes me so angry. Oh, so yeah, I'm going to leave it at that. I honestly think that this is becoming an absolute farce. For one, the grid penalties, the penalties in general, and the Toro Rosso situation is a goddamn farce. So yeah, I'm going to leave it at that. Tell me what you think. Did you think that the penalty for Verstappen was fair? I did, but it needed consistency, and if he was going to be the only one getting penalised, then I don't think he should have been penalised at all. But for now, yep, I'm going to sign off. Don't forget to subscribe to me and to give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed my video. Follow me on any of my social medias, which I will link down below. I'll also link my blog post about Prima, and I will also, sorry, I just hiccuped. I will also be putting another video up very soon. So I am going to be in London for a few days. I will be with the YouTube lot that I went to Silverstone with, so if you want to catch up on our antics, follow all of our various social medias. You will find us all probably linked into each other's Twitter pages and Instagrams, so if you're wanting to find us through them. I'm not going to list them all down below because I will be here for about 100 years. But if you want to catch up on any of our antics over the weekend, follow us all on social media, and I am going to sign off for now. Hope you all have an enjoyable week. I will put some more videos up during the week, but for now, ciao.